Part 82. Mo Yan almost die. Shui Chen commits suicide. Yi Yang find a way out for this loving pairs. When he saw Jun Yi in the palace, thinking of Shui Chen's incident, he forbore his unhappiness and politely stepped forward to say hello. My concubine pays respect to the emperor. Already said that before. There's no need for outsiders to salute. Jun Yi didn't like Yi Yang seeing himself in such a polite way. He felt very unfamiliar, and invisibly distanced himself from Yi Yang. Yi Yang, who was angry with Jun Yi, did not reply. He stood in place and kept a distance from Jun Yi. Jun Yi naturally noticed Yi Yang's unfamiliarity today, and asked doubtfully, "Concubine Yi, what's wrong with you?" Yi Yang rolled his eyes in his heart, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. After all, his life was in Jun Yi's hands, so he didn't dare to anger him. When Jun Yi saw Yi Yang staring at him with resentful eyes, he was stunned. He didn't even know what he had done wrong. Why did Yi Yang suddenly ignore him? Could it be that Yi Yang went out to listen to a certain concubine's provocation today, so he alienated himself? Thinking of this possibility, Jun Yi gritted his teeth secretly. And later he must ask Yun Qing, which bastard is talking about behind his back? Your Majesty, what's the matter with you today? Yi Yang asked politely. But there was a hint of alienation in his tone. Can't I come and see you if I have nothing to do? Jun Yi naturally heard the alienation in Yi Yang's words. He stood up and walked towards Yi Yang. Approaching Yi Yang, he looked down at Yi Yang, who was half a head shorter than him, exuding the monarch's unique aura, which made Yi Yang feel a little uncomfortable, and really wanted to turn around and escape from the Jinyang palace. Yi Yang couldn't resist the strong sense of oppression, and took a step back, but this annoyed Jun Yi. So he grabbed Yi Yang, who wanted to escape, pulled it into his arms, and asked in his ear, "Can you tell me, why are you ignoring me today? What are you saying, Your Majesty? How dare a concubine ignore the emperor? If I had the guts, I would have turned around and fled." Seeing him claiming to be a concubine, a gloom flashed in Jun Yi's eyes. He knew Yi Yang's temperament well, so he would call himself a courtier and concubine when he was polite and angry. In other cases, he acted his own way and never kept the etiquette in the palace in mind. Today, he has used his concubine twice, and such an estranged attitude hurts his heart inexplicably. Seeing the alienation in Yi Yang's eyes, he was even more flustered. He was really afraid that the person in front of him would suddenly leave him one day. He had never been so panicked before. He clearly embraced this person, but the distance between me and him seemed to be separated by the ends of the earth. Jun Yi's expression darkened slightly. He lowered his head, kissed Yi Yang's lips, and wrapped his tongue strongly around Yi Yang's cock, as if only in this way could he truly possess Yi Yang. Yi Yang was awakened by hunger. He irritably threw away the hand wrapped around his waist, and was about to get up and put on his clothes to find something to eat, when Jun Yi suddenly hugged his waist from behind. A dull voice was heard at him. It sounded from behind, "Yi Yang, if there is anything you can say to me face to face, can you just ignore me?" The person who used to be high and arrogant in the past, but today he was subdued in front of him, and his heart trembled, as if something broke into his heart, which made him feel a little overwhelmed. He turned to look at the person who was hugging him, but found that Jun Yi had a rare fragile expression on his face. His heart was stinged fiercely, and he couldn't help stroking the unparalleled face in front of him, and asked gently, "Your Majesty, can you? Have you ever liked the imperial concubine?" Jun Yi shook his head very simply. Although Shui Chen looks like an ideal in the world, Shui Chen is too boring. It's okay to talk to him about the situation in the court. Yi Yang looked in disbelief. Seeing that Yi Yang didn't believe it, Jun Yi became anxious. What I said is true. Will Yi Yang believe it? Of course not. He asked instead, then why did the emperor let Shui Chen enter the palace in the first place? It was better to let Shui Chen enter the palace. At this moment, Jun Yi finally understood why Yi Yang was unhappy today. It was because he was eating Shui Chen's vinegar. He was very happy in his heart, and his tone was also a lot lighter. When I became emperor, the ministers tried to persuade me to choose a concubine, so I just picked a few. But Yi Yang, you don't need to be jealous because of Shui Chen. I haven't touched him. The last sentence made Yi Yang stunned, and he stared at Jun Yi in astonishment. He never imagined that Jun Yi would be able to hold back his inner desires in the face of Shui Chen, who was as handsome as an immortal. This is so mysterious. Jun Yi suddenly turned up, pressed Yi Yang under him, held Yi Yang's face in his hands, stared at it carefully, and finally said something faintly, if you don't like it, I won't go to Shui Chen Palace in the future. Yi Yang came to the spirit, and he asked excitedly, Your Majesty, if you don't like the imperial concubine, can you let him free? Jun Yi was stunned for a moment. He seemed to understand why Yi Yang had shown his face to him before. Co-authoring Yi Yang was to help Shui Chen to fight the injustice. So he showed his face to him. It's just. He shook his head, seeing Yi Yang's sudden look of disappointment. He replied speechlessly, since ancient times, how could there be a reason for a concubine divorce to be an emperor? There is no such precedent at all, okay? Yi Yang smiled slyly. He replied, as long as you are willing to let go of the emperor, I have a way to restore Shui Chen's freedom. Jun Yi looked at the sly smile on Yi Yang's face. He felt that he had taken Yi Yang's trick now. Co-authoring Yi Yang to show his face is to force him to let Shui Chen go free. But this time it was clear that he was thinking too much. Because Yi Yang was really angry before. But after talking about it, I learned that Shui Chen was sent to the palace. It should be Shui Chen's parents who forced Shui Chen into the palace, which caused Shui Chen and Mo Yan separates. Especially knowing that Jun Yi has never touched Shui Chen, Yi Yang is so happy. I don't know if he is happy for Mo Yan or for himself. Seeing him smiling happily, Jun Yi was unhappy. He replied coldly, I know what you're thinking, but I still want to remind you that Mo Yan may not last 3 days. The smile instantly solidified. He looked at Jun Yi in astonishment. Why did the emperor know that the person Shui Chen liked was Mo Yan? Jun Yi saw the doubts in Yi Yang's heart and replied, I'm not a fool. At the celebration banquet that day, Mo Yan and Shui Chen's performance was enough to prove that the two liked each other before. After that day, he understood why Shui Chen always suggested that he should give a happy marriage for Mo Yan, but it turned out that Shui Chen didn't want Mo Yan to be single all the time. Yi Yang was speechless and choked. He thought that Jun Yi didn't know, causing him to struggle alone for so long. He stared deeply at the person sitting on his body and asked, if Mo Yan can survive, are you willing to help them? As long as you have a way to keep the royal family from being embarrassed, I can fulfill them, but... He dragged his tail, looked at Yi Yang under him, put his hands on Yi Yang's chest, and said lightly, I am missing an imperial concubine. Concubine Yi. Should you give me something to compensate me? You can create a new imperial concubine. Yi Yang raised his opinion. Jun Yi nodded in agreement. Your Majesty. I think. Yi Yang originally wanted to recommend concubine Tianzi. After all, that person is a foodie, and generally has no bad intentions. When he is in the top, he will definitely not use his status to pressure him. It's a pity that Jun Yi was the first to say, I have already made a decision in my heart for the choice of the imperial concubine. But, He looked at Yi Yang's handsome face and made an unreasonable request, I want you to take the initiative once. Yi Yang felt that he was betraying his body. But thinking that Shui Chen had been good to him, why not take the initiative to serve Jun Yi once? Early the next morning, Jun Yi left the Jinyang Palace with a face full of spring breeze. And poor Yi Yang was too tired to get up. But he knew that Mo Yan's condition couldn't be dragged on, so he asked Xiao Doubting to leave the palace and gave General Mo Yan a message. After Xiao Doubting received the order, he applied to leave the palace that day and rushed to the general's mansion. Yi Yang dragged his tired body to the Shui Chen Palace. When he came to Shui Chen Palace, the atmosphere of Shui Chen Palace was a little wrong. The eunuchs were busy with each other, but no one greeted Yi Yang at all. He grabbed the eunuch who was in a hurry and asked, What's wrong with you? Yuan Shao glanced at Yi Yang and said politely, Young master concubine Yi. Didn't the servants let people inform the various halls? I don't need to greet my master today. I didn't come here to greet you, I just wanted to see your master. I'm sorry, young master Yi. My master accidentally fell into the pond in the backyard last night and caught the cold, so he can't see you, young master Yi. Yuan Shao looked apologetic, and he hurriedly rushed into the kitchen of the side hall to cook medicine for Shui Chen. Accidentally fell into the pond, this is a ghost letter. Yi Yang secretly scolded Shui Chen for being too impatient, and he was in a hurry to die before Mo Yan died. He walked to the door of the main hall and happened to meet Yuan Shou, who came out of the room. When Yuan Shou saw Yi Yang, his eyes turned red instantly. If Yi Yang hadn't reminded him to pay more attention to Shui Chen yesterday, they might have found Shui Chen's body in the pond today. Thank you, concubine Yi, for reminding the minions yesterday. Otherwise, Yuan Shou cried sadly before he finished speaking. Didn't I tell you to be optimistic about your master? Yi Yang blamed Yuan Shou for not being optimistic about Shui Chen. The slave saw that the master was asleep last night, so I relaxed my vigilance and dozed off for a while, but who would have thought that in such a short time? The master would. Yuan Shou didn't say anything, but Yi Yang knew. Shui Chen took advantage of Yuan Shou to fall asleep, and went to the backyard alone and jumped into the pond to commit suicide. Yi Yang knew that Yuan Shou couldn't be blamed for this, because Shui Chen wanted to commit suicide alone. Even if he sent 10 people to stare at it, it would not help. Seeing Yuan Shou crying sadly, he patted Yuan Shou on the shoulder and comforted, It's fine, you too, don't blame yourself too much. I'll go in and persuade the imperial concubine. Thank you. Concubine Yi. Yuan Shou looked grateful. With so many concubines in the palace, only Yi Yang is sincere for his master. Yi Yang walked into the palace, and under Yuan Shou's guidance, he came to Shui Chen's bedroom, looked at Shui Chen lying on the bed, and sighed. Shui Chen woke up long ago, and knew that Yi Yang was here, but he just lay on the bed as he didn't want to get up. With a face full of lovelessness, Yi Yang lifted a stool and sat in front of Shui Chen's bed. Seeing that his face was flushed with fever, he was about to open his mouth to tell Shui Chen that the emperor promised to fulfill them, but Shui Chen was the first to speak. I know what you're going to say, but I don't want to hear it. Shui Chen opened his eyes, looked at the veil on the top of the bed, and said slowly, Mo Yan and I grew up together, and we just started out as pure brotherhood. But under the jokes of parents, it gradually developed into love. Yi Yang saw him chatting about the past and did not interrupt, because he knew that some things had been held in his heart for too long and needed an outlet to vent. He was the vent, so he didn't say anything, quietly acting as a listener. Shui Chen didn't stop, and continued, Mo Yan's personality is like his mother, and he believes that one person is a lifetime, so when he found out that this friendship was promoted to love, he immediately gave my family a betrothal gift. Yi Yang darkened that Mo Yan is resolute, and if you like it, you must start with it first, but, why did the two finally separate? Could it be that Shui Chen's parents disagreed? However, Yi Yang's inner thoughts were quickly denied by reality. Shui Chen continued. My parents admire Mo Yan's talent and are very satisfied with Mo Yan, especially when they received Mo Yan's dowry and were happy to discuss marriage for us, but at this moment, news came from the palace, said that I was chosen by the emperor. Yi Yang was stunned for a moment. Didn't Zhen Yi say that when he chose the concubine, he was looking at the portrait? Since Shui Chen's parents were very satisfied with Mo Yan, why did they send Shui Chen's portrait into the palace? Did Zhen Yi lie? Just when he secretly scolded Zhen Yi for being cunning, Shui Chen continued. We later learned that it was my cousin who liked Mo Yan, and she didn't want me to get married. So she sent my portrait to the draft in the palace. Yi Yang was stunned for a moment, and asked uncertainty, your cousin? Couldn't it be what Hua Banshui you said before? Shui Chen did not reply. But his silence clearly told Yi Yang that it was Hua Banshui. Yi Yang looked at Shui Chen with admiration. He had never seen such a ruthless person. No wonder he would vomit blood from Mo Yan's anger at first, but he would also vomit blood with anger. In front of the ex, introducing the woman who ruined their marriage. How ruthless is it to do such a thing? Shui Chen sighed lightly and said with a tired face, Brother concubine Yi, I am too tired today. I have to rest. Yi Yang looked at Shui Chen, whose lips were slightly pale, and said slowly, if I say, the emperor is willing to, what about the two of you? Shui Chen sat up suddenly. Looking at Yi Yang in disbelief, his heart was beating wildly. Impossible, impossible. How could the emperor be able to fulfill me and Mo Yan? He tried to calm himself down. But his beating heart couldn't calm down. He tried hard to persuade himself that this is not true, this is not true. How could the emperor disregard the face of the royal family and fulfill him and Mo Yan? If this were to spread out, the surrounding countries would definitely laugh at Zhen Yi behind his back, and even send the imperial concubine to please him courtier. Impossible. It's impossible. He said it was impossible, but the glimmer of hope in his eyes couldn't be ignored. It's impossible for the emperor to fulfill the two of you. But we can find another way. Yi Yang raised his eyebrows, looked at Shui Chen, and said slowly, however, it depends on whether you are willing to change your identity. The imperial concubine. Change identity? Shui Chen didn't understand. Yes. Yi Yang nodded. He lowered his voice, and whispered in Shui Chen's ear about his plan. At the same time, Xiao Doubting also rushed to the general's mansion, but when he saw Mo Yan, who was pale and had no consciousness, he was depressed. How could this make him speak? Little eunuch, tell me if you have anything. I'm afraid he won't be able to hear what you have to say now. Old General Mo looked at Mo Yan, who was getting weaker and weaker. His lips were slightly white, and his cloudy eyes showed a sad, old face full of decadence. Xiao Doubting always remembered Yi Yang's explanation. Since Yi Yang said that he couldn't tell anyone other than General Mo Yan. He couldn't tell anyone other than General Mo Yan. He shook his head and replied with an apologetic expression, I'm sorry General Mo. This slave can only tell General Mo Yan. He turned his head to look at Mo Yan again, hesitated for a moment and said to General Mo, General Mo, can I see General Mo Yan's injury? Look. Look. General Mo sat on the chair beside him, like an old tree that was about to wither. Xiao Doubting stepped forward and untied the front of Mo Yan's shirt, revealing the gauze stained with red blood. He resisted the urge to faint, untied the gauze, and looked at the ferocious wound under the gauze, dizzy for a while. I saw that the wound had festered, causing the surrounding flesh to become necrotic, with no ability to regenerate at all, a vicious cycle that finally took away Mo Yan's life. He hurriedly tied the gauze, then buttoned the placket, and said to General Mo, who was beside him, "General Mo, the servants retire." General Mo nodded absent-mindedly. Xiao Doubting hurriedly left the general's mansion and hurried back to the palace.